We just have about a few days remaining until it is officially summer. And depending on where you live, it may already feel like summer or it may feel like when is summer going to get here. But it is officially still the season of spring here in the United States, in the Northern Hemisphere. And well, in spring, you do some spring cleaning. And I thought we'd take some time to do a segment where we talk about some things WWE could do to maybe clean up the product a little bit. And it's not just one thing, it's a few things. And what I mean by clean up the product is it's a television show, right? And there's just a few things here and there that you go, does that need to be there? Or what's the purpose of this? Or why are we doing this? Those kind of things that could, I guess, tighten up the product, right? Monday Night Raw back in the day used to be 3 hours and SmackDown 2 hours right on the dot. They know how to button up a program just like anything else on TV. So there's some other things essentially to make it so I think the product could just flow a little bit better from in talent and in the ring itself to out of the ring. And we'll start with one thing that I think WWE can essentially sweep away, and that is these post PLE press conferences. We've done this for a little bit now. They brought this in to make it look like real sport. And to make it feel like we're watching, the end of a basketball or football or hockey or whatever game. But with WWE, I don't think they're working it. Specifically, after Money in the Bank, we got an example of I think we've run its course, right? R-Truth made his return at Money in the Bank. A lot of people were speculating exactly how he made his return, in the sense of, was he actually released all along, or was this a swerve? What's going on? Well, Triple H, during the press conference, among the many things that he says that I think we're just kind of done with, we don't really need, at least as a fan's perspective, to be a part of. But he told somebody who asked about this, all part of the show, essentially. Did you enjoy the show? It was all part of the show. But rumors are, and the people who work within WWE are kind of putting out there that he's wrong, that that's not how this worked, that this necessarily wasn't part of the show.
His son called it out too. His son called it out. Ron Killing's son, R-Truth's son, said cap, and for all the old people out there, that means lie out there for us older people. But the kids call it cap these days, and I did see Ron Killing, R-Truth's son, put out cap, which tells me that why would he? I mean, unless there's, in this crazy world, Ron Killing's son is involved in the story, so to speak. But let's be honest. I think what happened was Ron Killing's R-Truth was released, budget cuts, whatever. We'll break that part down, I'm sure. But he was let go, and then within 72 hours of Money in the Bank, they reversed course because We Want Truth was out there on social media, and the people spoke. So I guess the issue for me personally is, why didn't WWE? Why were they being so coy about, let's just enjoy the show? Why don't you say, we heard you loud and clear, we brought him back?
Well, and that's why these press conferences overall, they just need to go, because we've learned from this. But I think more recently, right, before Money in the Bank was Backlash, and at Backlash we had the setup for what ended up being R-Truth versus John Cena, which was John Cena in character and R-Truth in character, and that also added to why these press conferences need to go, is because what are we doing here? Okay, with let's say a basketball player during the press conference, he's the basketball player. That's his government name. You're talking to him about things that he's going to answer truthfully, right? With the WWE, are we getting Rock the character? Are we getting Rock the board of director member?
Well,
here's the problem we have here.
Here's where the confusion lies. The wrestlers, generally, from what I've seen, I can't sit there and analyze and watch the entire press conference because I've just watched enough wrestling for that night. But from what I have seen, the wrestlers generally stay in character. It's the executives that they put their executive hat on and they're not really in character, so to speak. Am I wrong for saying that?
I mean, I feel like John Cena's kind of gone off character, at least, especially too when you see him, like, let's see, he was on the Pat McAfee show specifically after WrestleMania. I know that's not the press conference. But it opens up that, I guess, what are we supposed to be expecting? If they are in character, that's great. That I think the press conferences are okay. They're still not needed because we have like 6 hours of television every single week.
They're useless. That's what they are.
Yeah,
They're useless.
Right. John Cena could have did the FU to R-Truth on Monday Night Raw. They just did that because he didn't want to show up on Monday Night Raw. So that's a way to prolong the story. But for the most part, we don't need to hear from the champions right after they win. That's what Monday Night Raw is. Why is the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania so great? Because that's when you're going to hear from Cody Rhodes and when he made his debut in Dallas. Or you're going to hear from Jey Uso, the new World Heavyweight Champion. We don't need to hear from them right then and there. They have those products. With sports, you don't have that. After a football game on Sunday, we're not going to watch 3 hours of them chit-chatting on Monday. If we were, then we can just wait till Monday to hear what they have to say about Sunday's game, right? Football, basketball, those are all sports in which are played, and they don't do any talking. There's no stories progressed through the actual product. The press conferences are the only time you actually hear the talking, right? In wrestling, talking is part of the show. John Cena is going to come out on SmackDown and on Raw. He's going to have a microphone, and he's going to just talk tonight. He's not going to wrestle. He's just going to talk. So if talking's already part of the show, we don't need to have a talking segment to add on to the show. And again, like The Rock ruined it right around WrestleMania and prior, right, with this whole coming out on the press conferences and being the board of directors while trying to be the final boss at the same time. Triple H overall, I think we're just kind of sick of him coming out and telling us all about the record-breaking numbers for the night because, again, at first it was kind of interesting, but now it's just, I think it's one of those things that fans have got onto, right? At first, we had this debate here on the show, like, is he just doing it as a way to hype up the fans and tell them they're a part of something special? And I thought from the get-go, no, it's kind of like rude to the fans. And now the fans have all pretty much caught on, and they're like, as specifically with WrestleMania going back to Las Vegas, they're like, that's enough. We get it. You fleeced us for $1 million. We got it.
To that point, though, what you just said, to maybe get back in the graces of the WWE universe, because they look at social trends on social media, like I think they do. It seems like they do. Why not kind of reverse course a little bit and say, hey, just like I said to my point about Ron Killian's R-Truth, reverse course and say, we brought him back because we heard you. Like maybe that's a way to kind of get back in good faith, because a lot of people like ourselves, we're seeing through the BS. We're reading the tea leaves. We're seeing all this BS. It is what it is. It smells like BS. It stinks bad. It's BS. It's reverse course.
It's a press conference overall that Triple H and anyone comes out and they are like, hey, we're open to taking questions, but at the same time, it is still within the WWE universe. They're making sure that they're going to say what they want to say, what they think is fit. So you're not going to really get honest answers, even from people like Triple H, who is coming out as, the COO of the company. You're still not going to get like, hey, is WrestleMania in Las Vegas really just a money grab? He's probably going to just laugh that one off.
We all know it is. Let's cut to the chase on that one. We all know that it is. Like, the Las Vegas offered a bigger bag than what New Orleans was offering, because it has nothing to do with can New Orleans host it and things like that. They've hosted a million different events over the years. To me, and WWE, I don't think they've come out and said this. At least maybe I haven't seen it, but maybe you have. It's about the money. Vegas offered a bigger bag. That was it.
Yes, I mean during the commercial now, and again, that's another thing we can clean up here. I'll add that to this one. Here's where we can clean up. We can clean up this commercial for WrestleMania in Las Vegas, because they did it last year. They're doing it again this year with Triple H, like at the forefront, right? I'm fine with the commercial that they did in years past, where they just show the city, where they say it's coming to the Las Vegas. They don't have to have Triple H actually on these things being like, we made so much money and broke so many records and did all this stuff. Because that, again, is like the disingenuous part of him kind of coming out and trying to explain exactly why. It was just like that last year, right? When he came out, I don't know if you've heard, but WWE's on fire right now. And we're coming, we got it. You're taking a lot of money from us. You're going to a place that's going to give you a lot of money. On this current commercial, he specifically said, Las Vegas WrestleMania, we broke records in attendance and viewership, and we expect to do better. And let me just say, they didn't break any attendance records. Allegiant Stadium is smaller than the stadium in New Orleans, the stadium in Philadelphia, the stadium in Dallas. Yeah. Yeah, so when it comes to breaking attendance records, you didn't break any attendance records. Even if you're like, well, 2 nights. Yeah, well, 2 nights in Philly, beat this. 2 nights in Dallas, beat this. 2 nights in New Orleans would beat this. 2 nights in LA, beat this. So of all the 2 night WrestleManias, with the exception of the pandemic with zero and the next year where they only allowed 25% in, any 100% crowded 2 night WrestleManias didn't beat this. If you're going by a night to night basis, didn't beat any night to night records, right? 65,000, that's not setting any records, right? I've been to two WrestleManias in MetLife Stadium that were both over 80, okay? And if you make them 2 nights, that's going to be 80 a night, or even if they were 70 a night. Again, so you're not breaking records there, so that's just a lie. And when it comes to viewership, here's the deal, right? That has nothing to do with Las Vegas, right? We all saw that last year with Cody Rhodes and John Cena and The Undertaker and that whole segment at the end of WrestleMania 40. Everyone was talking about it. It didn't matter that it happened in Philadelphia. It mattered that it happened in general, right? So if in New Orleans, The Rock comes back and Rock bottoms Roman Reigns and it's the most watched thing on YouTube, that's going to be because it happened, not because of it happened in New Orleans or it happened in Las Vegas. So that's another one of those, like, what does the television rating have to do with the location, right? And as you put, right, it's really one of those things that specifically to pull out of New Orleans. If you were going to pull out of some small city or something like that, that might be a little confusing, but I might understand it better. But to pull out of a place that's clearly hosted more Super Bowls than anywhere else on earth, they're a party town, they're Mardi Gras,
Final Fours, every main event, every big show imaginable has been in New Orleans. Like they know what to do.
It is, and WrestleMania has already been there twice, right? And they went back to back within 4 years. They went to New Orleans. So WrestleMania going back to New Orleans has nothing on, or going back to Las Vegas has nothing negative about New Orleans. It is an event town. It is a Super Bowl caliber town. It could have hosted WrestleMania, and if it wanted to break attendance records, it would have gotten more people in the crowd than will in Las Vegas. 100%, like you said, it was Las Vegas itself given the bag, knowing they could probably fleece some people out of money. So that is definitely something that can get cleaned up in how we're presenting WrestleMania in Las Vegas. And one little tie-in with WrestleMania in Las Vegas, I saw the logo. I'll give them credit. It's different. Obviously, I don't want to see a repeat logo. I don't want it to be like COVID times where the logos back-to-back in 2020 and 2021 were just like variations of the same pirate ship. I like a new logo, but the logo that they picked, I don't see how that would look on a sign hanging in the arena next year. It's a little kind of graffiti looking, kind of cool, but I guess from my perspective of like pointing at the sign at WrestleMania, it doesn't look like it's got that kind of vibe. I guess they're going to have to probably clean that up, but that's neither here nor there. But moving on to some other things that WWE needs to clean up, and that's sponsorship. We need to figure out where the line is here when it comes to sponsorships and this company, right? We saw this past week at Money in the Bank, the ladders sponsored by Fireball. We saw the tables now sponsored by Slim Jims. We saw the turnbuckles all had sponsorships up and down the line.
Hold on for a second. Slam into a Slim Jim table.
Yes, I mean that's what they're hoping here. And listen, I growing up, sponsorships were very few and far between. I knew of like THQ and Acclaim because they sponsored the pay-per-view. You heard their name like once, you never saw their name anywhere in the arena. And I understand we can move a little bit from that, right? We started to get this sponsorship thing going. It's not recent; it's been going for a little while now. But I guess what we need to clean up is where we draw the line, because we see now is Slim Jims on the tables. In the sense of if you're sponsoring the tables and you're not sponsoring it for a specific event, which is already advertised table matches, you're sponsoring them in general, which means you're going to shoehorn tables into places that maybe we didn't need table matches before. Similar to how at WrestleMania, we got a tag team match involving the New Day because of a Clash of Clans sponsorship that had to be added to the card. More than the match needed to be added, the sponsorship needed to be added. So where do we draw the line where we say, hey, we want sponsorships, we want that kind of money,
know what it is, right?
But we need to stop. We need to get to a point where it doesn't affect the actual presentation.
They're taking like a NASCAR approach. Like I know you don't watch NASCAR. I mean, obviously you know that I do. I'm a big NASCAR fan. It reminds me of like say a driver's engine blows and it's like, all right, they're out of the race. You give it a few minutes, you let them get settled and checked out and all that stuff, and then you get them, in the pit area. Hey, tell me about what happened out there. Oh, first I want to thank, he goes, the driver goes down the list of Quaker, let's say like Pennzoil and like McDonald's and all that stuff. And then he talks about the thing. It's almost to that point where it's like you're you're labeling every single. You're like every inch of real estate is up for grabs right now. It seems like, and it reminds me of, and I mentioned this before. It reminds me of, I think it was Major League Two, where Roger Dorn is the owner of the team, and he's short on cash. He like every square inch of the outfield is labeled. That's, I mean, I know they're not broke. I know that example is not a little far fetched, yeah. But they're not broke, but they're labeling everything.
Yeah, and it's to a point, I guess, now where if it, like with the Slim Jims on the table, has gotten to that line where you're like, okay, now it's a part of the actual presentation. This isn't no more like Slim Jims presents WWE. It's more like, how are we going to get Slim Jims involved in the WWE? So we got to create a match. We got to create a thing. That's the kind of thing. And we saw, I guess, with that Slim Jim Battle Royal a couple years ago at SummerSlam, similar idea of like creating a Battle Royal just to get Slim Jims on there. And that's the problem, right? If the sponsorships are there, but they have nothing to do with why the matches are happening, then that's fine. But we're getting to a point, like I said, where John Cena is going to pull out a table in a submission match, and you're like, wait, I thought this was a submission match. It's like, yeah, but we didn't get the Slim Jim sponsorship in tonight, so I have to throw him through a table. Like, where it's actually affecting that. You know, it reminds me similar to like when they used to create those cartoons back in the day that were only created to sell toys. You know what I mean? They'd be like, hey, let's create this cartoon only created to sell Transformers or certain action figures. And it's like, that's the thing. Is John Cena going to fight Dominic Mysterio because that rivalry is going to bloom out of somewhere in the summer? Or is John Cena going to fight Dominic Mysterio because John Cena could put a lot of eyeballs on this new Taco Bell advertisement?
So have they, I don't think they've labeled the chairs yet, have they?
I don't think they've labeled the chairs yet, no. But I mean,
but you were on to something last week. It was the wrong company, but you talked about Werner and the ladder, being a sponsor.
The Werner would just make sense, right?
Yeah.
That's more of a more blended in. This was worse because this was a blatant sponsorship. Werner actually makes ladders, so it kind of makes sense to not actually essentially use a sponsorship there. You're just using a Werner ladder, right? It's kind of one of those kind of things where like a lot of times at baseball stadiums now, I notice like True Green is a sponsorship because they actually use True Green as part of the lawn, right? But the Fireball on the ladder, like Fireball doesn't create the ladder. That's just literally we're putting that sponsorship on the ladder.
Fireball would have been better branded with a chair, like a chair shot. Your Fireball chair shot. You know what I mean? Like, Fireball. People
don't give them any ideas. They've already got more than enough. I promise you, they're probably waiting to put something on the chairs. It's just. And even the Prime, I don't mind the Prime, but I think we've gone about a year now with the Prime sponsorship all over, and that like Prime bottle sitting just next to the announce table every single night.
Hydration station.
It's just, as no one goes over there and drinks any Prime, it's just there for like a gaudy look.
Randy Orton did. He said, man, this sucks. I do remember that.
So it's just that kind of like sponsorship that's just like too much in your face. So we need to button that up as we move along to this upcoming pay-per-view for WWE Night of Champions. As we thought, darn it, man, after 1 year of bringing back King and Queen of the Ring, they're getting rid of it in favor of Night of Champions. But alas, we have King and Queen of the Ring with the same stipulation as last year. The winners get up with a championship shot at SummerSlam of their choosing. It was just announced Jey Uso will be the secret member of the one King of the Ring match that's going to happen on an upcoming Raw. So for those out there who are fighting for Karrion Kross to be included in that and want him to be pushed in that way, sorry, not again. But I guess where we need to clean this up is, why does this pay-per-view need to be called Night of Champions? Why can't this be the King and Queen of the Ring PLE like it was last year, featuring the King and Queen? Like, it's essentially like getting rid of the Royal Rumble, putting in Fastlane, but then Fastlane is going to feature the Royal Rumble. Like, it's this kind of, it's the King and Queen of the Ring, but it's also Night of Champions. Clearly there's not going to be enough space on this card to have every championship match. And clearly they've already announced that the King and Queen of the Ring are going to be on the line, which aren't traditional championships. So there goes your whole Night of Champions. This is only a Night of Champions theory, because back in the day, all matches were championship matches at Night of Champions, and only that, right? So why isn't this pay-per-view just called King of the Ring? Back in the day, there was lots of non-King of the Ring matches on King of the Ring, but it was the name of the pay-per-view because the pay-per-view or the PLE itself featured this. This was a big feature on it. Again, this is a big feature on this upcoming PLE. Just call it King and Queen of the Ring. You did it great with it last year. You made it the name of the pay-per-view. You made it featured on the pay-per-view. You gave it importance. The people went on the SummerSlam. I like that it's back and that it has a reason and a purpose. I just don't know why like this has to be called Night of Champions. I don't get that.
Yeah, to me, it's very funky. Like, why don't we just? Why can't it just be like King and Queen of the Ring? Like
Yeah.
that's the way it should be. Like I don't know why they do this. I feel like TKO in some of these instances like I shake my head at some of the things they do. I don't get me wrong. I like the direction in some aspects, but it's like little things like you just mentioned. It's a little house cleaning, like housekeeping, I guess. Like, why don't we clean these things up and make these PLEs flow better? Like, if you have a show, like if you have a kind of a gimmick that you're going with, like King and Queen of the Ring, why not make, like you said, why not just make it the pay-per-view? Like the whole Night of Champions, like why don't we do it totally different? Like it doesn't make sense. Like I get frustrated
because
with it.
King and Queen of the Ring is an old enough a name that has been tied to. It's not like certain things that have never had pay-per-views named for them. King of the Ring has had a pay-per-view named for it. So like for example, like a hardcore match. There's never been, a pay-per-view that's called like WWE, the hardcore match, like so you put that on existing pay-per-views. But King of the Ring is a very old Big Five pay-per-view back in the day, right? So you brought back the pay-per-view for 1 year, then decided to scrap it, and then decided to be like, well, wait, we want to still keep the King and Queen of the Ring, but we want it to be a part of Night of Champions. But Night of Champions is one of those that nobody cares that one goes away, right? There's no long history with Night of Champions. It's not one of those pay-per-views.
I know they're doing it again this year after like a 7-year hiatus or 5 years, whatever it was. The Evolution pay-per-view, I think, is cool. I do like that. I think we have enough of a roster to make it happen where you don't have to bring back a bunch of legends, which they're still going to do because it sounds like the Bella Twins are making a return here. It's at Evolution coming up. That's going to be interesting. I do like TKO's approach to that. I like the fact that it's an all women's pay-per-view, and it's going to be much better than the first, I think, because I think the division's much better. There's so much talent out there.
Yeah, there's way more championships as well. I mean,
yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to. I know that's a little bit down the line, but I do like TKO's approach to that. So I don't want to continually crap on everything they're doing. I think it's been decent, but I think there's been some swings and misses here. And that, again, Night of Champions, King and Queen of the Ring. Why don't we just call it what it is, King and Queen of the Ring?
And with Evolution too as well, like they're putting it together with like a very crammed weekend just to essentially go up against AEW, right? With Saturday night's main event and then Great American Bash. Like it would probably be a little bit better as just, like a standalone, like it's on Saturday night or Sunday night. It's a pay-per-view. It doesn't have to be like it kind of makes it feel like the WWE is lessening it in the sense of we don't know if it's more important. Like which one are they going to feel like, do we need Saturday night's main event to sell like as a combo pack so people will go to Evolution? It's kind of one of those things that like, hey, before, like it'd be like if the WNBA was like, hey, come out to this WNBA game, there's an NBA game before it and one ticket is good for both. You're like, you trying to make it to feel like we have to have these combo tickets to hold up, similar to like with like NXT pay-per-views when they go around like SummerSlam weekend and they don't really have that good a crowd, but they try to get people to go essentially as part of a combo of like what we just kind of saw, right? With like Battleground and Saturday's main event in the same weekend. And like buying a ticket for Saturday's main event gets you into Battleground. So I feel like it'd be good if it's standalone. But moving on to what will be Saturday's main event most likely, and these are all just rumors right now, but things that I am not liking, and that is Gunther becoming the world heavyweight champion this week. Not because necessarily he earned this spot to be world heavyweight champion in the eyes of creative, but because Triple H wants him in his what appears to be upcoming match against Goldberg in Goldberg's hometown to be for the championship. And I can tell you a lot of people are very interested in seeing Gunther and Goldberg. It's a storyline that's been created a little while back. I think it was right around the beginning of the Netflix era, right? I think when they started their little back and forth. But for the championship, not a fan of, because there's just either Gunther's going to beat Goldberg, which we all know Goldberg never likes to lose, or worse than that, Goldberg is going to become the champion. If it was for the not for the championship, great. You can have a
Yep.
95-year-old Goldberg out there with Gunther. Let's see what he can do. Let's see how entertaining this can be. But when the championship is on the line, it's like when you race your friends and you're like, hey, let's see who's faster. Should be a good time. If I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. But if I'm like $1,000 on the line, all of a sudden you're like, this isn't fun anymore. This is like, I better win this. I don't want to know what happens otherwise. And with Goldberg going for a championship, as we saw him do right before the pandemic, and beating Bray Wyatt for the title and all that other stuff, and on the other places he's become champion where we didn't want to see him champion. Yeah, no, I don't want to see him fighting for a championship because it
Well, I
scares
don't
me
like
that
the
he's going
fact
to
that
win.
Jay's got. I just don't like the fact Jay lost the belt at this point. Like that just didn't make sense to me. Like I get why. I mean, it makes sense from what TKO and Triple H and the whole group there. We get that. Like we know they're setting up a future Gunther Goldberg title match, Atlanta. We get that. Like that's.
Mhm.
But to me, it doesn't make sense because Jey Uso has been a great draw. He's been a great champion so far, and it was he was a great champion at that up to this point. And it's disappointing because they really could have rode that out for a little bit longer, and gone into the summer and SummerSlam as the champ, and do all that. You don't need Gunther and Goldberg for the championship. Let Jey Uso be the champ for a while and let him have a fun run because the fans were completely behind him. And I texted you this. I'm just gonna open the door a little bit here. My daughter's becoming a big wrestling fan, which
Mhm.
obviously that's a great thing for me and for for us, going forward because she's gonna want to go to wrestling shows. Like that's gonna be something that she wants. And we're watching that show, and we're watching. She loves Jey Uso. She does the whole when the whole Yeet thing comes on, she's all excited about it. And when Jey Uso, he lost the match on Monday Night Raw this past week, the expression on her face was she was not happy. And I can bet you there's a lot of little kids out there that are not happy about it because Jey Uso, was the champion and was a great champion. So, and WWE could have made even more money, off of Jey Uso because the kids love him. I'm a fan of Jey Uso. It just would have made more dollars and cents, I guess. But here we go. Gunther Goldberg championship. Just don't put the championship on Goldberg for Pete's sake. That would just be awful.
Yeah, and I think if they put the championship on Goldberg, right? The idea
It
is that
sucked.
he's just going to hold it for a month, probably take it to SummerSlam and lose it back to Gunther there. It's just one of those things that gets him. Like, I think, you know what? To Goldberg's credit, I think he's a good enough name to get him on a card without having to be the champion. He did this before, right around WrestleMania. He became the champion just so he could go into WrestleMania as the champion. He did it at WrestleMania 33 against Brock Lesnar. He did it WrestleMania 2020, where then he immediately lost it to Braun Strowman. And that was really annoying too, because it was supposed to be Roman Reigns winning. But then when Roman Reigns was out, Goldberg was still like, hey, man, I got to lose this. I don't want to be here any longer. I got to lose this. And that kind of stinks because he's not in it for the long term at all. So if he wins it and then Gunther somehow has to go on injury, Goldberg will lose it to anybody. He does. He's like, hey, I just take it off me. And it's something that you need to have taken off you like that. And that's the same reason why I didn't want The Rock to be champion back then.
Yeah.
Because remember, he won the championship against CM Punk, ending his very long, illustrious reign, just so we could go to WrestleMania and lose it immediately to John Cena. And if John Cena was injured that night, Rock would have probably just gave it up. Like, it's one of those things of you're not the champion like a regular WWE Superstars champion, in which they'll hold it until you tell them not to. You're a champion in sense of like, I only want it till then. If you don't take it off me, I'll take it off myself. And that's not like a good way to have a champion because you don't know. Maybe you want to have a champion longer. Maybe something happens where you're like, hey, you got to hold it for a little bit longer. And if Goldberg's like, no, I'm not put anyone against me. And that's why we had Braun Strowman as a champion. And he's a credible champion. I'm not saying that, but it was like just literally like it was just handed to Braun Strowman.
It was
because
thrown
Roman Reigns
together
was
really
out.
quick. That's what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, it was just handed to him because Goldberg had to lose it, right? And essentially, if the person who had the belt before Goldberg kept the belt and Roman Reigns was out of the championship match at WrestleMania, then that person could have potentially kept the belt, aka, Bray Wyatt, stuff like that. So there wouldn't have been that issue. So with Goldberg winning the belt at Saturday's main event, it just sets up a obvious match at SummerSlam where he's going to lose it to whoever he's facing. So it's just a waste of time. He's not going to win it at Saturday's main event and then defend it at SummerSlam. If he wants to be on the SummerSlam card, put him on the card, but we don't need him. I liked him on the card at SummerSlam 2019 when he just came out and he just speared Dolph Ziggler like 50 times. That's fine. We don't need him actually like for going for gold and for championships, specifically when we know his health. He has come out and talked about his health and the situations of like, I am not ready to roar and to wrestle for a long period of time, that kind of thing. So why do we put it on somebody who's admittedly like, my better days are way behind me and I'm struggling to walk, like those kind of things? Like, yeah, we
That's
don't put
why
it on that.
that's why you can't do these championship matches with a guy like Goldberg because God, he just said because of his age and injuries and
And
this,
to
that, and
have
the other
Gunther of all people lose to him after you have him beat Jey Uso, essentially be
makes
this guy who wins
no
at all
sense.
costs. The only time he lost was at WrestleMania kind of thing, and it's like David versus Goliath every time you're facing him, and he's got such credibility to then have him be a transitional champion
Yeah,
for
no, it's not
Goldberg.
good. It's
Yeah,
not good. To me personally, like if Goldberg wants to do these one-offs here and there and then finally retire, that's fine. I don't want any other stakes in it besides like, is this going to be his last match kind of thing? That's all I care about at this point with Goldberg. Keep the belts far away from him. He doesn't need it. It's just a waste of time, in my opinion.
exactly. And the final thing I'll say we can clean up, and I'll actually say coming from Money in the Bank weekend, there was Worlds Collide before that. And I will give Worlds Collide a lot of credit, or WWE a lot of credit, because see, it was very simple. Didn't take much effort. They did it without really anybody expecting to do it. But if you watch Worlds Collide, you noticed that the entranceway for Worlds Collide didn't look like Monday Night Raw. It looked a little bit different. Was it elaborate? Did it cost millions of dollars? No, it was like a pyramid set up kind of like, as it's a Mexican led promotion, right? It had kind of that Mexican themage with like, the pyramids, not so much the pyramids, that's Egypt, but like the temples and the Aztec temples and stuff that are familiar with Mexican ruins and stuff like that. So good on WWE for saying, like, I got an idea. Let's take these screens we already set up and just set them up in a different way. And even Money in the Bank did have a different kind of feel. I always like Money in the Bank because it makes WWE, even in their laziest form, be like, even if they put up the Monday Night Raw set, they're just like, well, let's throw some ladders out here so that you can, if you're watching at home, know what you're watching. And it's as simple as that. Really, it is like super simple, right? It doesn't, when people are complaining about the sets and the designs, they're not saying that everything needs to be the most elaborate thing. They're just literally saying, look at Worlds Collide, right? We didn't even expect you to do that, and you did that. And we noticed if I watch highlights from Worlds Collide and highlights from Money in the Bank without the names associated to them, I'll know which is which show. That's all we're kind of looking for, is to know which show we're watching when we see the show, right? So obviously that's a thing they could easily clean up. And, overall, I will say one thing they probably need to clean up sooner than later that we thought was going to get cleaned up by now, but WWE isn't doing it. And that SmackDown being brought back down to 3 hours. It's kind of crazy because back in the day, I was yelling to the clouds and everyone thought I was crazy for wanting, Raw to be pushed back to 2 hours. And I think it's perfect the way it is now. I think Raw right now is the best way possible. We want to talk about cleaning up Raw. You cleaned it up. It's perfect. It goes as long as it needs to go
Yep.
every single week. SmackDown, though, is in that phase where they're like Raw was, where now they're stretching out things that don't need to get stretched out. But they're
That's
staying
why they
3
need to
hours.
be on. That's why SmackDown. I know you can watch it internationally, like on Netflix and all that. But that's why SmackDown needs to follow that same suit and go to Netflix worldwide, so to speak.
Mhm.
Because guess what? On a streaming platform, you don't have to hit a certain time mark. You can be at 2 hours and 12 minutes. That's all you need. Fantastic. We're off.
I
Now
will.
hit a certain number.
And I will say, just as a personal preference with the pay-per-views, I know WWE now has got these different openings for pay-per-views and for Monday Night Raw too. Monday Night Raw doesn't, and SmackDown for them. They don't even have. Remember when they used to have like video packages, like Beautiful People, and Union Underground? They don't even have those anymore. If
No,
I tell you what, I don't even know. Does Monday Night Raw even have a theme song? I don't even know. Right?
no, they don't.
Yeah, it's so.
It's like that
I will
forever
say,
thing.
when it comes to that stuff, I did prefer the graphic logo for WWE to kick off every show, and then like those video packages that we used to have in the day that kind of talk about whatever it is, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble,
Well,
then
you know what
Pyro,
they do?
then the
You know
show
what they?
starts.
I think you've noticed that. You notice the little things like a lot of us,
Huh?
a lot of people maybe miss. I guess like they do. Like I see it every week, where depending on whatever show you're watching, You see Rhea Ripley walking through the
Yeah,
parking lot.
we got the point. I guess it's a little accept, and I guess the issue is too because they have the pre-shows for every single pay-per-view and PLE.
Yeah.
So I noticed that because you see like where they do like the American national anthem and things like that. Like it's really like when the pay-per-views actually start at the top of the hour, it just kind of blends into like one show. It doesn't feel like back in the day of like this is this, and it's a hard open. Monday Night Raw is more of a hard open because there's nothing before it, and SmackDown the same. But with like the pay-per-views where they're showing the people like walking in during the pre-shows and doing that stuff, it kind of the fact that they do the soft open where it's like Michael Cole just doing an aerial shot and he's talking about everybody coming in, that just feels like a continuation of the pre-show. When I remember going to WrestleMania this past year, it was kind of that weird thing where like back in the day when you'd watch WrestleMania or be at WrestleMania, there was that like the lights would go out, that anticipation, that countdown, like here we go. But now it just seems like, all right, that's the pre-show and send it to Michael Cole. And Michael Cole's like, that's right. Welcome to ringside. It's WrestleMania. You're like, it's just such a blend from one to the other. And I wish they would kind of clean that presentation up. Because like I said, WrestleMania, it doesn't start like lights go dark, TV goes black, the FBI warning comes up, everyone gets quiet, and then here we go. It's just like you were just watching the pre-show. Now this is the main show. Really, like not as clean of a transition as I would like.
Really quick though, with Worlds Collide, just fast.
Mm-hmm.
Great show. I thought Chad Gable put on a hell of a match. That was a fun card, a fun show overall. So bravo, a lot of love and respect for the Mexican culture. So kudos to them. I thought it was a great show.
And now we have Mr. Iguana to talk about.
Love Mr. Iguana. Shout out to him. I can't wait to see more of him.
Yes, I've seen him in memes all week long. I hope to see more of him because I want to see more of him in his wrestling ability because I guess his just persona took off so much that I'm like, was his wrestling even that great? I kind of forget because it's just his whole character seems to have taken off over the past week. But that's how quick it takes to become a star, right? And we got like about a minute left. One final thing when it comes to cleaning things up, right? How about this cleaning things up? The Ron Killings t-shirts came out before R-Truth decided to cut his hair this past week and tell us he was going to be Ron Killings, spoiling that. And we've seen this in other places where some t-shirts come out, like AKA the Penta t-shirt, before Penta actually came out. So it's things like that we need to button up. I love the Ron Killings shirts. That's great. How about we put those on shop as soon as R-Truth cuts his hair and says, I'm Ron Killings. But they put him out like right after Money in the Bank. And it made people be like, oh, I guess he's going to go back to Ron Killings, and spoiled that whole thing.
On the Truth Killings, baby. Let's go. I love it.
Yes. And I'm fine. But yeah, don't be selling shirts that say Ron Killings on them before he's done that segment on Monday Night Raw. And they've done that a few different times, like I said, where we have a Penta shirt on Shop Zone before Penta's made his debut, and a few other things like, John Cena's stuff.
Hold off on it before they get there.
Yes. All right.